The full moon was 3 nights away, and the air in the shadow-worn pack territory tasted of desperation and pine needles. For Evelina Thorne, the deadline was a cold, sharp blade poised at her throat. Tonight was the claiming ceremony, the night she was meant to stand before the council and accept Beta Silas as her lifelong mate, a man whose touch made her skin crawl and whose smile was a promise of control. At 20 years old, Evie was deemed a liability, an unmated female who needed to be secured for the pack's stability. She wasn't an Omega. She was a competent hunter and a fiercely independent wolf, but the archaic laws didn't care for competence or independence. They cared only for obedience. Evie stood on the elevated stones of the sacred circle, the moonlight filtering through the sparse tree canopy above, casting long, nervous shadows. The pack, a gathering of grey and brown coats, watched with a mixture of pity and morbid curiosity. Beta Silas, a hulking figure with eyes that glittered with possessive hunger, was already waiting. He extended a hand, ready to complete the ritual. Evie's heart hammered against her ribs, a frantic cage thing. No, I won't. She thought of the freedom of the open forests, the scent of the sea she'd only ever read about. She had a plan, a crazy last-minute gamble she'd concocted with the remnants of her dwindling courage. Taking a deep, shaky breath, Evie didn't take his hand. She pushed herself back slightly, her voice shaking but firm, projecting to the silent crowd. "I cannot accept this claiming," she stated. A murmur rose through the pack, quickly silenced by a glare from the seated alpha. Evie pressed on, her hand instinctively going to her flat abdomen. "My loyalties and my future are already tied." She held up her chin, meeting Silas's furious, bewildered gaze. "I am carrying a child." The shock that rippled through the pack was a palpable wave. Whispers erupted immediately, louder this time. Silas took a menacing step closer. "You lie. Who would dare? And when?" he snarled, his wolf close to the surface. He knew she hadn't mated with anyone in the pack. Her greatest fear was that they would demand to know the father. Evie swallowed, the lie tasting like ash. "The father," she said, choosing the most dangerous, most immediate deterrent she could think of, "is a rogue. He passed through the lands during the last full moon, and I chose him. He is gone now, but his bloodline remains." The word rogue was explosive. Rogues were outcasts, violent, unpredictable. Their law stated no child of a rogue could be claimed by the pack, as it destabilized the hierarchy. But it also meant severe punishment for the mother. Evie had bought herself time, perhaps even a public shaming and banishment, but not Silas. "The child is mine to raise, and I will not subject my pup to a forced claiming." Silas roared, his eyes flashing red. The alpha rose, his face grim. Evie braced for the consequence of her calculated lie, unaware of a far greater, much more powerful storm gathering on the horizon. The reprieve was brief, unstable, and destined to shatter sooner than she realized. The pack's reaction was exactly what she needed, a complete, all-consuming distraction from the real threat that was about to arrive. The aftermath of Evie's announcement was chaos. She was not immediately thrown into the dungeons, but confined to the solitary cabin on the pack's edge, under armed guard. The pack healer, an older wolf named Alara, was ordered to perform a verification ritual, but Evie had cleverly stalled by claiming the pregnancy was too early for safe interference. Her lie was holding by a thread. 2 days passed in tense silence, filled only by the pacing of the guards and the distant, mournful howl of a lone wolf. On the 3rd day, the air pressure shifted. It was an environmental change, a thick, heavy silence that pressed on the chest, signalling the arrival of unparalleled power. The guards suddenly went rigid, their eyes wide with fear. The distant thud of heavy paws on the dirt road outside the perimeter grew louder, an intimidating, rhythmic beat. Evie knew that sound. It wasn't the clumsy gallop of her own pack. It was the controlled, disciplined approach of elite warriors. This was the Crescent Moon Pack. Rumours about the Crescent Moon were legend, a pack so large, so wealthy, and so ruthlessly disciplined that they controlled all territory for 100 miles. Their alpha, Kian Rourke, was a myth, a man whose shadow was said to be darker than the night, and whose strength was absolute. He never stepped into petty pack squabbles, so why was he here? The door to her cabin burst open, splintering the frame. Beta Silas and the shadow-worn alpha stood there, pale and sweating, flanked by two figures that dwarfed them. One of them, the clear leader, stepped into the meagre light of the cabin. Alpha Kian Rourke was not a myth. He was a walking, breathing monument of power. Tall, built like a Greek statue carved from obsidian, with midnight black hair and eyes like molten gold that seemed to strip Evie down to her very soul. His scent was a dizzying blend of leather, cedar, and pure, raw alpha authority, a smell that commanded submission, and paradoxically, stirred an unwanted heat deep within Evie. Evelina Thorne. His voice was a low, dangerous rumble that vibrated through the floorboards. You are the subject of dispute. He glanced at Silas with blatant disdain, then fixed his golden gaze back on Evie's stomach, the corner of his mouth curving into a slow, knowing smirk. Evie felt her blood run cold. She didn't need to be claimed by a beta. She needed to avoid being seen by an alpha, and this alpha saw everything. My business here is not merely territorial, little wolf. It appears I have a claim of my own to assert. The room went silent, save for the sudden, frantic beat of Evie's own heart. Kian Rourke was here for more than land. He was here for her. Alpha Rourke's words hung in the air, a final decree more binding than any pack law. Evie's alpha sputtered, completely undermined, while Silas was speechless with barely contained rage. Kian, unhurried, took a step closer, his focus entirely on Evie. The treaty, he explained, his voice devoid of emotion, was signed by your great-grandfather. It mandates that in exchange for protection from the Northern Territories, your pack offers a bride to the Crescent Moon Alpha every century. I believe I am exactly 50 years overdue, and you, he gestured dismissively towards Silas and the shadow-worn Alpha, have been keeping my property from me. Evie felt a sickening lurch. She was not a person. She was a political pawn, an asset in a centuries-old transaction. And now, her desperate lie about the rogue's baby was about to clash spectacularly with a powerful alpha's ancient claim. I am not property, she spat, taking a defiant step back, the scent of her fear masking her true scent. And I am already claimed. She pressed her hand to her abdomen again, hoping the lie could hold against this force of nature. Kian's golden eyes narrowed, penetrating her deception easily. His chuckle was a dry, menacing sound. A rogue's child. A predictable and poorly executed attempt at self-preservation, little wolf. He didn't even need to use his alpha voice to command her attention. I can smell the truth, Evie Thorne. You are not pregnant. Not with a rogue's pup or anyone else's. Her face must have betrayed her, because a flash of something unreadable, amusement mixed with a deep, territorial possessiveness, crossed his features. Then the true shock hit. As Kian Rourke stood mere feet away, her wolf suddenly surged, an uncontrollable biological reaction. A warm electric current shot through her veins, settling deep in her chest. It wasn't the pleasant, comforting buzz of a true mate bond, but a violent magnetic pull, a fierce recognition that made her knees weak and her wolf howl in joyful, desperate submission. It was the mate bond. Kian Rourke was her true mate. The realization horrified her. She hated him. His power, his arrogance, and the fact that he saw her as a piece of history. Yet her very essence was screaming for him. Kian's eyes widened a fraction, the golden colour darkening as he, too, felt the jolt of the bond. His initial amusement was replaced by cold, hard intensity. He controlled himself instantly, his alpha mask firmly back in place, but Evie had seen it. He felt the pull. He felt the bond. He didn't want a political pawn anymore. He had found his mate. He reached out, his large, scarred hand closing firmly around her wrist. You're coming with me, he stated, the command resonating with the primal authority of the mate bond. Evie knew that resisting now meant certain death, but accepting meant eternal servitude to a man who already controlled her very soul. The journey to the Crescent Moon Pack was a silent, grueling ordeal. Evie rode in a sleek black SUV, not a cage, but the invisible bars of Kian's presence were far more restricting. He sat beside her, radiating an effortless power that kept her wolf subdued and whimpering with conflicting desires. The immediate, powerful spark of the mate bond had been acknowledged by both of them in that split second, and both had instantly agreed without a word to ignore it. The circumstances were too complicated, the power imbalance too vast. You will maintain the lie, Kian stated flatly, breaking the silence as they crossed into his territory, a vast expanse of towering pines and meticulously patrolled borders. The lie of the rogue's child. Evie stared at him, bewildered. Why? You know I'm not pregnant. You can easily expose me and the bond to your pack. Because, little wolf. He turned his head, his golden eyes cold and analytical. My pack is already on edge. Their alpha bringing back a bride from a weak pack is one thing. Bringing back an openly hostile true mate, who is also under the pretense of being pregnant by a rogue, that creates immediate instability. You are not a bride yet. You are an asset to be assessed. The rogue's child narrative provides a convenient excuse for your ill temper and pack instability. You are not well. You are carrying a burden, and therefore, you are my possession that needs protecting. His words were calculated to wound and control. He was using her lie as a shield for his own political advantage. And what do I get out of this? Evie challenged, trying to ignore the way his scent was starting to feel like home. You get to live, he countered immediately, a humourless curve to his lip. You get to avoid being claimed by that disgusting beta and his pack's archaic laws. You get the protection of the crescent moon, and you get to see how I deal with a woman who attempts to deceive me. He leaned closer, his whisper dark and intimate, causing an unwanted shiver to race down her spine. The mate bond changes nothing in this arrangement, Evie. We will present a united front to the pack. You will obey my commands in public. In private, we will discuss this complication. Evie realised the dangerous game she had just signed up for. She was playing a pregnant, rogue-mated captive to a powerful alpha who was secretly her true mate. If anyone found out about the non-existent pregnancy, she was dead. If anyone found out about the mate bond before Kian was ready, she was dead. She was trading one cage for a gilded one, but this one was guarded by a wolf who saw her and her deception completely. The sheer thrill of the danger, however, ignited a fierce, rebellious spark in her chest. She wouldn't just survive this game. She would figure out how to win it. Kian's pack house was a fortress of glass and stone, blending seamlessly with the wild forest, but clearly dominating it. Evie was led inside, a quiet, defiant figure among the strong, curious faces of the Crescent Moon warriors. The pack members were tall, confident, and utterly loyal to their alpha. Their scents, a multitude of spices and earth, were all underpinned by the deep, commanding scent of Kian. The pack beta, a woman named Lyra, a shocking break from the patriarchal norm of Evie's old pack, met them at the entrance. Lyra was sharp, efficient, and her gaze was a challenge. Evie instantly respected her. Lyra's eyes flicked from Kian to Evie's flat stomach, and then back to Kian with a knowing, unreadable expression. She was clearly privy to more than just the political arrangement. Alpha. Lyra's voice was cool. The council is waiting. They require confirmation of your claim and the details of the transfer. Kian nodded, his hand remaining possessively on Evie's lower back, a gesture that was both a public claim and a private threat. Tell them I will meet them after Evie is settled. She is unwell. The rogue's claim has taken a toll. The rogue's claim, Lyra repeated, her eyebrows arching slightly. She didn't press the matter, which was telling. She was playing Kian's game. She will be housed in the main wing. Near your quarters, Alpha, for supervision. Evie felt a blush creep up her neck. Living near him would be torture, with the mate bond humming just beneath the surface, demanding connection. The thought of being in such close proximity to her enemy, her true mate, was enough to make her wolf whine in desperate confusion. Later that evening, Kian came to her lavish room. He was dressed in a simple grey t-shirt, his massive frame radiating heat and power. He didn't look like the ruthless alpha. He looked like a devastatingly attractive man who had just come from a workout. He held a small antique box. We need a story, he stated, placing the box on the mahogany table. For the child. And for the rogue. He opened the box to reveal a silver locket with a faded, intricate carving of a single wolf. The rogue, let's call him, Damon. He was an alpha of a fallen pack. He gave you this locket. It's the only proof of your shared affection. And the child. He looked at her abdomen again, a deep, unsettling sadness flickering in his golden eyes before he masked it. You are 3 months along. You will require clothes, a schedule, and most importantly, a believable persona. He was not just protecting her. He was meticulously crafting a narrative, binding her to him in a web of sophisticated lies. Evie picked up the locket, the silver cold against her palm, realizing that Kian Rourke was not just a powerful alpha, but a master manipulator, and she was trapped in his play. The first week at the Crescent Moon Pack was an exercise in pure, unadulterated tension. Evie was confined to the main pack house, given a personal guard, a quiet, kind warrior named Finn, and forced to play the part of the alpha's troubled new acquisition. She wore oversized sweaters, strategically avoided touching her stomach, and perfected the art of looking pale and stressed. Kian was ruthless in his methods. He would summon her to the dining hall for meals, where she would have to endure the judgmental, curious stares of the higher-ranking pack members. He would publicly fuss over her delicate state, placing a hand on her back, or guiding her with a subtle proprietary touch. Every single public display of affection was a carefully choreographed performance for his pack. But for Evie, it was an agonizing reminder of the true, denied bond between them. One night the mate bond's whisper became a demanding roar. Evie couldn't sleep. The full moon was climbing high, and the silver light was pouring into her room. Her wolf was restless, whining for its other half. She could feel Kian's presence through the thin walls, a heavy, warm anchor of power that was simultaneously comforting and infuriating. Driven by a need she couldn't control, she slipped out of her room and found herself standing before his closed door. She could hear his muffled movements inside. The scent of him was overwhelming here, the cedar and leather mixed with the clean, sharp smell of the approaching shift. The door opened silently, revealing Kian. He wasn't fully shifted, but his eyes were pure gold, the irises slit with the wildness of his alpha wolf. He was bare-chested, his torso a landscape of hard muscle and faded scars. He hadn't been expecting her, and for a fleeting moment his powerful control faltered. His eyes locked onto hers, and the electric current of the mate bond sparked, hot and undeniable. "Evie," he growled, the name a warning and a plea all at once. His wolf was close enough that Evie felt the undeniable gravitational pull toward him. "I can't sleep," she whispered, her voice husky. "The moon, and your scent. It's too strong." Kian took a deep, shaky breath, his chest rising and falling quickly. "Go back to your room," he commanded, his voice tight. "We agreed." No acknowledgement of the bond. "Not yet." "You feel it, though," she pressed, the defiance in her blood surging. "Don't you? It's not just a political claim, Kian. We're mates." He slammed his hand against the wall beside his head, the sound echoing through the quiet hall. "Yes, I feel it! But that does not change the fact that you are a liar, a pawn, and a massive political risk to my pack. Go." He didn't have to use his alpha tone. The sheer, raw intensity of his desire mixed with his anger was enough to send her retreating, the scent of his denied, frustrated wolf following her back to her lonely room. The mate bond was a blessing and a curse, and in this pack house it was a ticking time bomb. The council meeting was the biggest hurdle for Kian and Evie's shared deception. The Crescent Moon Council consisted of elders who were ancient, shrewd, and fiercely protective of their pack's future. Evie sat stiffly beside Kian, wearing one of the maternity sweaters he had procured, attempting to look demure and frail. The head elder, an old she-wolf with sharp pale eyes named Morwen, began the interrogation. "Evie Thorne, you arrived under a treaty claim. Your former pack's alpha was vague on the details. Alpha Rourke tells us you were carrying a child conceived by a rogue. Is this correct?" Evie met the elder's gaze head-on. "Yes, the father was a solitary wolf. He passed through the lands and offered me his protection for a short time. He is gone now, but I carry his heir." She tried to sound sincere, letting a controlled amount of fear and sadness into her scent. Morwen leaned forward, her eyes narrowing. "And you resisted the claiming from your own pack's beta to protect this child. A child of a rogue? The question was a trap, an attempt to expose her lack of loyalty. I resisted the claiming because I will not subject my pup to a forced pack ritual. My love for the father was brief, but my loyalty to this child is absolute," Evie countered, her voice gaining strength, tapping into a genuine maternal protectiveness she didn't know she possessed. The story was beginning to feel real. Just as the elders seemed to accept the narrative, a new dark shadow was cast over the proceedings. Beta Silas, of the shadow-worn pack, had followed Kian's trail and was allowed to address the council. He was a picture of righteous indignation. Alpha Rourke elders. "She is a liar! I can prove she is not pregnant," Silas roared, his wolf scent rank with jealousy and desperation. "Her scent is too clean, too sharp. The shadow-worn healer could not verify her state. She created this fabrication to escape her fate, and now she uses it to manipulate a superior alpha. She is a dangerous, unworthy wolf." Kian rose slowly, his towering figure casting a shadow over the table. The shift in the room was immediate. The atmosphere became thick with controlled alpha power. Kian did not raise his voice, but his low, dangerous tone demanded submission. "You dare question the word of the alpha of the Crescent Moon Pack in front of his council Beta?" He didn't deny the accusation. He challenged the insolence. He placed his hand firmly on Evie's flat stomach, pressing lightly. "The lie, as you call it, is my business. Whether she is carrying a pup or not, her fate is now tied to mine by an ancient treaty. And by my decision. Furthermore, I will not tolerate any threats to my property, my pack, or my mate. Leave this territory and never return, Beta, or the next time you cross my path I will claim your life." The threat was icy, absolute, and utterly convincing. Silas, trembling under the weight of Kian's alpha aura, retreated, defeated. Kian had protected her lie, but his cold, proprietary gaze on her after the meeting made it clear. She was safe, but she was entirely his. The full moon was tonight. The night of the shift, the night of untamed instincts. The mate bond, suppressed for so long, was now a searing, frantic fire in Evie's soul, and she knew Kian felt it tenfold. The controlled distance was about to break. Kian found her in the solitary training yard, practicing her shift, which was clumsy and incomplete due to her emotional turmoil. He watched from the shadows, his presence a heavy weight. "You should be resting," he stated, stepping into the moonlight. His wolf was barely contained, his breathing heavy. "I can't," Evie admitted, her voice raw. "I can't keep this up, Kian, the lie. The bond, the coldness. It's tearing my wolf apart." Kian walked towards her, the scent of his potent alpha wolf intoxicating her senses. He stopped right in front of her, close enough for the heat of his body to warm her. "I know. The game is over, Evie. I won the political battle. You are mine. The treaty is satisfied. The shadow-worn pack is contained, and the council is convinced I have a difficult, fragile mate to supervise. And the pregnancy," she challenged, her heart pounding. He reached out, his powerful hand cupping her cheek, his thumb gently stroking her skin. "There is no rogue's child. I knew that the moment I laid eyes on you, but I saw the desperation, and I saw the fight in you. You chose a powerful lie to save yourself, and I respect that. Now I choose a truth to claim you." His golden eyes were filled with a raw, undeniable emotion, a mix of possessiveness, relief, and a deep, consuming affection that finally acknowledged their connection. "You are not pregnant, but you are my mate, my true mate." He dropped his hand, taking a step back to give her space, a sign of respect her former alpha would never have afforded her. "I need you to tell me." "Evie Thorne," Kian said, his voice husky with suppressed emotion. "I will not force the claiming, mate bond or not. You pretended to be claimed to avoid a tyrant. You are now in the presence of an alpha who will not tolerate being lied to, but who will never command your spirit. Will you accept me? Will you allow me to claim you?" The full moon was at its peak, washing the world in silver. Evie looked at the strongest, most complex and most devastating man she had ever met. He was a tyrant in public, but he was offering her a choice in private. He was her true mate, the only one who could complete her. "Yes," she breathed, the word a release of months of terror and tension. "I accept you, Alpha Rourke. Claim me." Kian let out a deep, powerful growl that resonated with her very core. He closed the distance between them, and under the light of the full moon, his strong arms wrapped around her, pulling her close. The instant their bodies touched, the mate bond exploded, a blissful, overwhelming wave of light and heat that finally, completely, claimed them both. The lie was over. The truth was their beginning. The truth was their beginning.